Okay, we have some fans.
Okay.
Please.
Okay.
So we were only talking about what's just been announced and is coming on the wires. We know what that is.
Us
In the
coming
US
on stage.
elections. So we're most likely Pennsylvania has been called for Donald Trump, and we're talking policy making, so should be quite an interesting conversation. But thank you very much, panel, for being here. It is a topic which continues to play a very significant, if not anything else, part in how technology is evolving, how capital providers are coming in, and what regulation should be. I'll try and give a 2-minute on why the capital meets policy dialogue even exists. So typically, anywhere in the world, innovation does not need permission from anybody to start. And anybody can do it anywhere they want, whatever they want. It takes about a couple of years for that innovation to develop into some sort of a product, and some early adopters of that solution tend to emerge. Whether this is B2C or B2B doesn't matter. At the end of those 2 years, typically, capital providers get interested, and they are looking for ideas and opportunities in which they can invest. So they come in about 2 years into the journey and provide capital for scaling up that innovation. The next 3 to 4 years, more capital providers come in, competition comes in, and the category grows. At 7, 8 years from when innovation was first done is when policymakers get interested. They want to see whether this is something which is causing any financial stability risk. Is this causing any issues on cybersecurity, or are there any issues that it's going to cause to individuals and citizens? Most often, policymakers don't really know all the domains for which they need to make policies on. Technology, most so. Am I being accusatory here? But on technology, I think that's true. Policymakers typically take a couple of years to understand what that new technology is, and it's now 7, 8, 9, 10 years since the innovation came in, and regulations come after that. In the recent years, over the last 4 or 5 years, a lot of regulation has killed innovation very late in the process. Examples are buy now, pay later. Cryptocurrencies suffered something like that. The EU AI Act said that facial recognition is something that private enterprises cannot do. Now, facial recognition has been responsible for bringing 1 billion financially excluded people into the formal financial system over the last 8 or 10 years. Now, this is also value destructive for startups and entrepreneurs. It is value destructive for investors in those entrepreneurs. That is the basis of creating this capital meets policy dialogue, that can we get policymakers and capital providers together, and the next 2, 3 sessions bring all of these together to try and understand from each other where is policymaking heading? What are areas that are possibly a concern for you as policymakers? Similarly, talk to capital providers to ask them where they see more capital being allocated. And then, is there some meeting of minds there that some early warning can come out for investors and entrepreneurs that these are areas which may be at risk a year or 2 or 3 years down the line. So with that little bit of a background on the capital meets policy dialogue, let's get started. We have an amazing panel here representing 3 very different markets, 2 much smaller markets and 1 very large, the largest in Europe. And we're going to have, hopefully, an insightful conversation. I want to start with Karolis here. We know that Lithuania has been often called a leader in Europe's digital economy, where about 10% of your GDP is said to come from digital and technology, which is pretty impressive. From your perspective, how are you achieving that sort of an outcome? That your tech and your digital sectors are getting support from policy, possibly, to achieve this sort of an outcome?
Well, hello, everyone. So to answer in 3 words, we have 4 words. We have no alternative. Lithuania is a relatively compact, is a small country in northern Eastern Europe, and we have no natural resources, no oil, no gas, no diamonds or gold. The only natural resource that we have is our human power and human minds. And we understood that very, very early, that in order for us to catch up and to be competitive, we have to be as flexible as possible. And I always refer to Lithuania a little bit like a startup itself, because we are small, we are very rapidly developing, we are not as big as other, I would say, multinational corporations, like United Kingdom, France, or Germany. We are much smaller, and that gives us as well a competitive advantage of being much more flexible. I know very well that 9 out of 10 startups fail. And you have to take risks. And we will maybe speak about it later on, But for us, it was very clear, and I would say 3 aspects that are mattered for our digital transformation. It's the governmental general understanding of the digital transformation, society, and business. And if some of these 3 elements are not working, you will not be working. Because if you can be as innovative as possible, but if the society will not adopt that, you will fail. If you won't have businesses who will develop your technologies, nobody will be using the technology. So for us, it's been a journey of 30 years, but we managed to have this disruption because of the general attitude and the appetite for technology disruption in the last, I would say, 30 years. And right now, 95% of our public services are digital. And
Amazing.
Almost 90% of our citizens, all citizens, from youngsters to seniors, 90% of our citizens are using digital services, and they're accessing digital services. And people get spoiled. I get criticized because the web pages are not loading fast enough, are not beautiful enough. And I'm telling guys, if this is the problem, that the governmental web page is not beautiful enough, we're good, Yeah. So, but that took time, and it's been a hell of a journey to get here.
Amazing. Okay. I mean, I can relate to that, living in a country which is even smaller, here in Singapore, which is all of 30 miles east to west and 17 miles north to south. But it is clearly pulling its weight way above its size, and digital and tech are a significant contributor to that. I want to move to Minister Delina. Albania has been ranked as one of the fastest growing economies in the Balkans. 4% GDP growth rate is pretty impressive in the world that we are in right now. But I was doing some research and found that attracting foreign investment into the country is something that has proven to be a challenge, inviting capital into the country, into the startup ecosystem or otherwise. Is that true? And if so, then what is being done to make it more attractive for capital to come into Albania?
Hello, everyone. I don't know if anyone in the scene knows where Albania is or have ever heard about Albania, but we are a very small country, right in the middle of Europe as a continent, not in the European Union. And 30 years ago, we were like really a closed economy. Borders were closed, capital wouldn't flow, people wouldn't exchange services, so all the freedoms were zero. In 30 years, we managed to have a transformational journey, which brought Albania to where it stands now, and to change the reputation from a country where nobody knows where you are or what you do, a secluded country outside of the world economy, into the fastest growing economy is not easy, and changing this reputation is not easy. And in terms of innovation, we have been actually struggling with attracting foreign direct investment and big investors come in. Nevertheless, in the last 10 years, we have managed as government to innovate ourselves, and we passed from like 4 services, online services 10 years ago, to 95% of the services all delivered online right now as we speak. So our government has been very focused on digitalizing the way we do government. And we are being very open, and we have been, let's say, the front runner of embracing digitalization in the country, while consumers and also businesses have been lagging behind. So in this country where everything is digital, the consumers, the usage of digital payments is like, we have 95% of the economy which is cash-based, consumer to business. So now we are trying to focus on what policies we need to implement in order to foster innovation into businesses and into consumers, into increasing literacy. So our challenge is, right for this moment, is this one. So in our case, it's not a matter of regulation towards innovation, because definitely and clearly we are very open to innovation as policies in the policy perspective, but it's a matter of education. And we are trying in our policies to develop policies that would attract foreign direct investment. We have now this new legislation on technoparks, which have huge fiscal incentives, 15 years of non-corporate tax, 0 income tax for 10 years, and other these kinds of incentives in order to attract foreign direct investment. But the struggle that we have, as I say, is this. And we are also very much advanced as government into embracing artificial intelligence. We have huge projects for artificial intelligence in procurement processes, for the use of artificial intelligence in all the alignment of the legislation, of the European legislation into our legislation, which is a process that we are going through towards the European Union, in fighting fraud, in tax evasion, in health, in agriculture. So we are trying to get the most of the technological advancements, but the struggle, as I say, is literacy and getting the whole players, so the private, the public, and the consumers work together and embrace digitalization.
Understood. I'm going to ask everyone to make a later on, so you can think on the side. If you had one pitch to make to entrepreneurs sitting here or investors sitting here to come to your country, what would it be? So let me just make that known right now. But let's move to a major market in Europe. And Berlin is often called to be the startup capital of Europe. We were talking behind that, even we are considering maybe there's a conference that we should run in Berlin. But tell us a little bit about how the EU AI Act, which has evolved, and just for everyone's benefit, the EU AI Act was something that was rolled out about a year ago. And the important thing with that is it's often said that it was rolled out in a haste, given the GDPR background where a lot of data-related policies took a long time and social media, etc., became a big problem. So the EU AI Act has quite, so it's been the other side, which has come out too fast. As if you're the startup capital in Europe, tell us, is that affecting the growth of startups in Berlin per se? You know, you're the secretary there.
Numbers usually don't lie. So you have to look at the numbers in Berlin very closely. Thank you very much for having me today. I'm very excited to be here, the most important fintech festival in the world. And we are here to learn, first and foremost. And looking at the numbers, in Berlin, each year about 500 startups are being founded.
Okay.
That is a huge number every year. Most of the German startups are being founded in Berlin. And most of the unicorns in Germany are based in Berlin. We count 18 unicorns as of today. And the startup Heatmap Europe 2023 ranks Berlin on the second position among all the European startup hubs. And the startup Blink 2024 ranks us on 13th position worldwide. And 38% of all AI startups are based in Berlin. And most of the venture capital in Germany goes into Berlin startups. So these numbers are rather encouraging, and there's a development going on. And you just spoke about digitalization. Berlin has an active strategy for internationalization, for digitalization and innovation. And we have about 129 online services for companies. And we, of course, want to digitalize them. And we digitalized 78 as of today. And we will be at 100 at the end of this year, and the rest of the 29 services will be digitalized in the months ahead. So we're doing that already. What I always experience, a lot of companies don't know that. So we have to talk more about what we do when it comes to digitalization. It's the same thing what you said in the beginning in terms of regulation. I think regulation should start with translation. You need to talk to the people that are innovators to understand, because the three of us here are not the tech people. We're the policy people, and we need to understand what technology means, what it brings. And of course, we have a certain focus on societies. That is our job as politicians. We have to minimize risks for societies, so regulations in general are not bad. You have to make it good with the markets together. And at the end, speaking of Berlin, no, I'm going to answer that in the end, because you asked what the unique selling point, that's what you're going for,
Yeah,
I guess,
okay.
is important. I'll put that at the end.
I do want to share some numbers here, and which will probably be a little bit challenging for, say, Germany, given that it's a very big market. We were in a dialogue, on a similar dialogue recently in Zurich, where we were looking at some numbers of investments into AI startups in Europe, in US, China, and we were trying to compare, and you're just coming from Beijing right now. We found that about 60% of capital that has been invested into AI is in the US. About 20% is in China. The amount of capital invested in AI in all of the EU is just 2% of what has gone into the world. If you look at patents, about 60% of patents globally on AI are being secured by China, about 25% by the US, and less than 1% by the EU and the United Kingdom put together. Now, those numbers are real too, and there is a debate on, is Europe regulation first and innovation later, versus the US, which is innovation first and we'll worry about regulation whenever we have to. There's a very interesting quote somebody gave me. They said, USA innovates, China replicates, Europe
Regulate.
regulates. So let me just ask that your experience with, and I'm talking Germany here, as a policymaker, are you seeing the EU AI Act as an act that is helpful for startups, or is it more creating more hurdles for startups? It's a tough question, I agree.
I know, and I did not negotiate the act. It's the federal level that negotiates the act for all of you. I'm from the
but
state of
but at the
Berlin.
ground level,
At the ground level,
when you're
of course-
experiencing what's happened as a result.
Well, I just told you, I gave you the numbers that are existing in Berlin, so there's a development, even though we have certain acts. I think regulation is not regulation because we put hurdles on companies on purpose. When we regulate, there should always be the goal not to define too many hurdles on the companies. When it comes to ethics, when it comes to human rights, of course, that's what we're looking at. And regulation in these parts are very important, and minimizing risk are very important in these parts. But I'd always go for innovation first, and finding regulations with the people that design and come up with ideas of new technologies. I think that's the right way to do it. And we'll have to see in the future what the Act actually puts on new hurdles, or it doesn't.
Yeah. So you have a point to make?
Yeah, well, competitiveness of Europe is one of the things that keeps me up at night. And Europe is the richest, most educated region in the world. Nevertheless, we are losing in innovation game. If you look at your phones, absolute majority of your applications will be either from the US or Southeast Asia.
That's true.
And this is the reality that we have to acknowledge. Europe is a fantastic 500 million market. Nevertheless, it's not the market that is producing adequately enough innovation. And this, for Lithuania, that's a big question, because we are a bit of an outlier with our attitude and our mindset. There's a joke circulating around, that if you have a startup in the US, the first employee that you hire is an engineer, and in the European Union, it's a compliance officer. And that is the reality that we have to acknowledge. Whether the Europe will be a very an old consumer market, or a market that will be producing innovation. And that's a constant debate in Brussels. Constant debate right now. Because we have to ensure the internal competitiveness inside European Union, as well as an outside competitiveness. IRA is the biggest swear word in Brussels right now.
Yep.
And so that's why I think it is a headache for Europe, and we have to acknowledge that, especially here in Singapore, that we have to be very, very cautious how Europe will be competing in today's world.
So if I ask a question on exactly those comments, they're very useful. Lithuania, you're looking to be part of the EU by the end of this decade.
Well, we are already part of EU for 20 years.
Albania.
It's Albania.
Albania, sorry.
Yeah.
You are looking to be part of. If you have to hear this conversation, where there is Europe, rather EU, which is looking at creating these policies and regulations which are too fast, too much, which are regulation first, not innovation first, whereas in your market, you are likely to be needing more innovation as opposed to more regulation. So if you are already heading in that direction and it's 5 or 6 years away, how are you ring-fencing your startup ecosystem or your ability to attract capital? Because it's likely that people will think that you are going to be as difficult to operate in as the rest of the EU.
Actually, for us, the EU it's only one way. So there's no other way. It's
So you're
the
going
EU. So
it.
we are going to the EU.
Yeah.
But the flexibility that we have up until we enter the EU gives us, let's say, a competitive advantage for the moment because we are less regulated. We're going to be regulated, definitely. Some kind of regulation, it's helpful for attracting FDIs, for attracting European companies to invest in Albania because many companies, traditional European companies, need security, needs regulation. There is a reason why there is all this regulation. There is a reason why there is all these numbers because big European companies need regulation, want security, want everything to be set it up. So for the moment, we still have that flexibility, but at the moment that we will enter European markets, it will be in my opinion, beneficial in terms of FDIs, and also it will be beneficial in terms of our companies having a larger market. And what we are trying to do on the way is trying to be able to be part of the European market in terms of systems, in terms of getting the benefits without over-regulating ourselves into the strict rules. And as I said, as a government, I talked earlier about the services and AI. We have this view of trying things first and then regulating it. For example, we have started from 1 year now to use an AI assistant to our services, and only 1 year after, we enabled a regulation that regulated the usage of AI. So we will keep doing this up until we will be part of the European Union, which is a trade-off in terms of regulation, but also it's a big opportunity for us.
So again, out of conversations in Zurich with a lot of startups, and it was quite clear that even though there is the EU and there is the, let's say, EU AI Act, even if you're coming out from Lithuania and you want to take, because it's a small market, but it has potential to go to larger markets within the EU, the regulations are not harmonized. There is the EU AI Act, but you have to do all the legal and local legal compliances, which are different from what you are or what they could be in the home market from where startups are originating. Is that your experience? Is that what you're hearing from startups, that there is very limited portability of their solutions when they originate from a market to go into the rest of the EU to scale?
Well, I would say, of course, there are some regulatory differences all over European Union. On the other hand, there are some aspects which makes life easier in European Union. If you have a license, banking license, in any of the European countries, you can operate all over European Union. It still operates as a single market, and I'm absolutely pro-European and pro-single market. I think it's one of the best things that happened for Lithuania to enter European Union. Even though I might have sounded a bit, apocalyptic about Europe, but in general, I believe in the European idea. And when it comes to this harmonization, we see that as an opportunity because it gives us, Lithuania, a competitive advantage. This possibility to have sometimes faster regulation, to react faster to some of the regulatory frameworks that exist. Lithuania is one of the most innovation first countries in Europe, in the European debate. And we are always the ones who are trying to push for more innovation first rather than regulation first agenda. On the other hand, there is a European consensus, but that is somewhere on average. But for us, it gives a real competitive advantage to utilize the benefits of the single market, nevertheless, to find ways how we could be more competitive and attractive for international, worldwide companies to enter European Union through Lithuania.
Got it. There is a hypothesis, which I'm glad I'm learning from you, that you see it as positive. The hypothesis being that if there are regulations on new technologies which are defined early enough, potentially there is more clarity for the startups that this is something that is good and they should invest their time and money in building it. There's more certainty for capital providers to say there is no risk in this becoming a problem from policymakers.
You know, the challenge is that policymakers and bureaucrats, they are so risk averse. All the politicians and decision makers are totally risk averse. And that's the clash of different worlds, you know, the entrepreneurial world and then the policymaking world. And in between that clash, that's where this regulation, you know, this balancing happens. And Lithuania is an example where actually if you change the policy-making mindset from risk-averse to risk-positive, it's risky. On the other hand, it really can create positive outcomes. For example, Bank of Lithuania, which is a regulator, a conservative regulator, 10 years ago decided to be an accelerator of fintech, meaning that the Bank of Lithuania, the regulation institution, started attracting fintechs, starting creating a sandbox, taking risks in that, and basically that change of mindset actually helped to accelerate the Lithuanian financial technology sector. And now Lithuania is #1 locations for financial technologies in European Union, being relatively small. But that just because the policy-making mindset was changed. But it's super complicated. And ask any politician. You know, nobody wants to take risks.
You have to tell us afterwards.
Okay, let's take a look at something from Germany, which is, you know, you are amongst the leaders in the sustainable economy, looking at green and sustainability in a very confident and a very comprehensive way. And hence, policy making and regulations plays an important part. Are they an enabler of that direction of travel, which Europe, of course, leads the world on? I don't know about China, but sometimes it looks like China is the furthest ahead when it comes to green and sustainability and EVs and solar panels and everything. But from Germany's point of view, the policy making on the green and sustainability side of things, how is that progressing? And are you supporting with policies, or you're trying to make sure there are enough guardrails right now before there's more innovation in that space?
46%, 46% of the Berlin startups assign their product in the field of green economy. So that is a lot in Berlin.
Wow.
And we as the state government decided to put some more effort, financial effort into that as well. We created and helped the market to create an impact hub in Berlin-Neukölln. And there are more than 100 companies that have that subject, green economy. We negotiated and put into place a startup agenda 2022-2026, and impact and empowerment and green technologies is a huge part in that agenda. And we created that agenda with the market. That's what I said before. It's not the right way that Michael Beale, as the state secretary, sits at his desk, thinks about the world and writes something down with his people. We do that too, because we're the policymakers, but we changed the way to create these things. We spoke and invited the actors from Berlin to create that together with us. And at the end, that's a good way to find out if policies are better when they are made by the politicians, the politics, and the markets together with or under the roof of the same understanding at the end. So that's what we did, and it's working very well. And you're probably right, the capacities of production when it comes to green economy have shifted to different countries. That is true. But I think innovation is still made in Europe and still made in Berlin and Germany. The big German companies that have their production plants in the south of Germany, you probably all know the cities I'm talking about and the companies I'm talking about, they all moved and will be moving their innovation centers and innovation labs to Berlin. So that is a good sign for us.
Okay, got it. There is a lot of conversation now that AI as a technology itself needs a global governance body. And the EU is an experiment in that, in some sense, that you have 27 markets which are governed through similar policies. What are your views on an organization like the UN? So this is a two-part question. One, do you think that there should be a global AI governance body? There's a nuclear equivalent of that seems to have served the world well, kept things in control. AI very often is spoken of as a technology which is similar to nuclear if it goes ballistic in some uncontrolled way. Is there value in having a global governance body? And regardless, is UN that global governance body? Maybe you want to take a shot at it.
Well, we are two European Union countries and one which is aspiring.
Outside,
we are
yeah.
already over-regulated. There is also already, as we mentioned, very clear regulation and on AI. So another government body, I don't know, it might be helpful in terms of discussions, in terms of research, in terms of getting different perspectives. But I wouldn't call it, call it a governing body. Maybe a common policy group to discuss issues that would drag the European Union to less regulation and more innovation.
Okay. Minister, what is your view on this?
There's a bunch of people who compare AI to nuclear. And there's people who say that AI is just an advanced calculator. And I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. When it comes to government, some worldwide government regulation and so on and so forth, even though Lithuania is very much pro-rules-based world order, the world is very turbulent right now. And I'm not sure that UN as a body proved that its existence helps to solve the actual existing polycrisis. We live in a polycrisis right now, all over the world. And I have some doubts whether this kind of governing body would be the one who would be deciding where should the AI be happening. Because it's an innovation-first process, and you can have whatever innovations you want. You will still you can have any regulations you want, you will still have some loopholes around it. Just like, we have UN Security Council, it should have ended all the wars in the world. Yeah. Somehow we still have actual warfares happening in several continents, So.
Yeah, so the debate sometimes borders on that have big tech companies become sovereign, and which is a big problem. That Google and all these guys are going to be almost like nations.
But on the other hand, Francis Fukuyama wrote about the end of history, and everyone was expecting that capitalism and liberal democracy will get over the world after the Cold War. That was not the case. And actually, the role of governments is actually increasing now. I don't agree that the corporations are ruling the world. Mm-hmm. We are eagerly waiting for US elections, who will be leading United States, who will be leading European Union because of the regulation. We are concerned about sanctions, we are concerned about the, Taiwan Strait, and this is something very much state-led. So that's why I don't agree that corporations will take over the world, because actually the state rule, the importance of states actually increased in the last couple of years. You take COVID. All the countries shut down, and that was the decision by the countries, governments, not by the multinational corporations. So sometimes, especially when life gets difficult, we realize that, warfares are fought by countries, borders are shut by countries, sanctions are being implemented by countries, regulations like EU AI Act is implemented by countries. So that's why I'm not sure.
There's a role there, clearly. What is your view on this?
To make it a short answer, if we only can meet on the lowest level, a common level, we shouldn't create a new
Governing body.
Governing body, but I'm the last person to argue against the United Nations, of course, but
Yeah.
we have to find the right amount of ambition if we go that way. If we do that, we can talk. Again, technology starts with translation. So if we find the right words, find the right understanding of what needs to be done, a new body might make sense. But as of today or now, I find it very hard. I doubt it as well.
You know, if you would ask who should be the leader of AI, Elon Musk or Antonio Guterres, the General Secretary of the United Nations, you know? So maybe that could be an easy choice between these two guys.
And your choice would be?
I think neither of them, to be honest.
Okay.
Even though, because I have some doubts
And
about
what
both
would you
guys.
choose?
No, it was not that easy, I was saying.
Okay, not easy.
Not an easy
Yeah,
choice.
I don't know what the public
That's
would
the political answer.
Yeah, that's the right answer politically. Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. I do want to, given that we have very limited time left, take this opportunity for each of you to take like a minute to tell the audiences, come to your country and why.
Well, Albania has been, you mentioned it, has been growing 4%, and the reason why it has been growing in the last years, it is tourism. Because we are a country in the middle of Europe with 300 days of sun, with good food, with good people, in terms of living and in terms of living standards. Then I told you that our government is very open and all digitalized, so it's very low bureaucracies in order to conduct a business. The second, then it is a skilled workforce, multilingual, so it's friendly to foreign direct investors. I will not mention the capital because we have been discussing about the availability of capital all around the world, so I think it's the less important part. And the rest is policy. I already mentioned that. We have a very flexible policy for investment in IT, and we are trying to attract as much foreign direct investment as possible. So I think it's a little jewel that needs to be discovered.
Okay, got it. You would like to go next?
When you entered this room, you had no idea Lithuania exists. Now you join the club of people who knows that Lithuania exists and can benefit of that.
I love that.
Lithuania is one of the most digitalized countries in Europe and the world. Lithuania is leading country in financial technologies and cybersecurity. If you're using a VPN, it's most probably a NordVPN or Surfshark. It's a Lithuanian unicorn. Both of these companies are actually under one unicorn. Lithuania is small, and that's your benefit, because you can enter market of 450 million with a bureaucracy of 3 million. So why bother taking the hard way of going to a much more bureaucratic and slower countries when you can enter exactly the same market through a fast track? And we have already a number of companies who are doing that because they knew that Lithuania exists. Now you know as well. So I invite you to come to Lithuanian booth, and we can continue on the conversation.
Okay, that's very nice. All right, and Michael, what are your 3 things maybe that people should come to Berlin?
Berlin takes care of the talents, and our development agency, or economic development agency, Berlin Partner, has a fast track for talents worldwide. 170 nations live in Berlin. We're about 4 million people in the state of Berlin, and the cuisine is good, and English is spoken everywhere.
Yeah.
And the state government funds a huge amount of hub structures, of fundings. Our investment bank, the regional bank, put out 3 VC capitals, state-regulated, and we did something new. If a woman decides to found in Berlin, she gets more money than the males. And that is very unique.
How's that?
We decided to do that because there's discrimination on the market. And there are a lot of women in Berlin.
All right.
And that's another thing. And since we're running out of time, I think Berlin still has the best clubs in the world, and that's where a lot of people come to Berlin as well.
Okay, I think you want to make a point in that? No? All right.
I agree on clubbing in Berlin.
See?
All right. Thank you very much, panel, for a very lively conversation. I think I'm going back with... okay, how many would like to go to Lithuania to start up? Okay, that looks like maybe 20%, 25%. Albania? Okay, that's about 15%. Germany? It's expensive, guys. All right, thank you very much, everybody. Please give a round of applause to the panel. Thank you very much.